Hi guys, welcome to episode 17 of my Warhammer Imperium review series. Coming to you very late because, well, funky stuff over Christmas. Stuff didn't arrive, stuff arrived late. I had things that I had to deal with over Christmas, and I've got 3 kids and other things, blah blah blah. Unfortunately, it's just meant a significant delay. But we're going to do it now. Issue 17 is another one full of scenery. As is next week's, actually. This is the second sprue. After this video, I'm going to do I'm going to do issue 18, and then week 19 looks like it's going to be, issue 19 is going to be another set of this. So we'll have 3 sets of this and a lot of scenery to play with, so that's nice. This is good, solid scenery. It's a little thin in terms of the plastic, but where it forms into box shapes, it is a solid scenery to put together. You've got some barrels, you've got some ammo crates, basically everything you need for a basic battle. Let's have a look. 2016, so it is 6 years old. As such, fairly new and fairly decent quality. As you can see, it is it's the GW manufactured plastic, rather than some of the made in China stuff. For those of you who haven't experienced the difference, if you look on the packets, you get made in China or made in Great Britain. Made in Great Britain is the stuff that GW make themselves in their Nottingham factory, and it is very good quality, a little bit flexible, but nice and steady, which is basically what you want. Some of the China stuff is a bit more inflexible, which means if there's any mismolding, particularly the larger, more complicated pieces, it becomes a nightmare to put together because you can't bend stuff in. Stuff doesn't want to hold, and it really doesn't handle anywhere near as well. That being said, it's not bad stuff and it keeps the prices down, so I'm not complaining that much. Here we've got Myriad Dynasties, a nice little fold out. We've had fold outs before, but this one is actually different. The size feels slightly different, but certainly the paper is more flexible. The previous fold outs have been a little bit more cardboardy. We're seeing a lot of weird stuff going on there. So still good quality, but this is obviously much more flexible paper, but it's glossy and it's nice, and sorry, a little stressful. And it tells you about the Necrons, which is cool. Right, and let's get into the magazine and see what we have got. As always, signed by Arcanoptic Lord Ian. We've got on page 1, Ultramarines, Injuries and Grudges. Some more stuff to basically add flavour to your units and add value. You've got a Grudge Generator table there. And this is a D33, which basically goes 1, 2, 3, 21, 22, 23, 31, 32, 33. So it's not actually a D33, it's a double D3, or a D3 times 2, or whatever you want to call it. But GW have chosen to call it D33 for brevity, I guess. I'll give you an example. If you roll an 11, you've got the prefix, there's a lingering hatred for, and the suffix Canoptic Scarabs. This one is obviously designed to go in line with what we're doing now. All the suffixes, basically all the bits that come last, are Necron based. 33, for example, is focus fire, and the suffix is flayed ones. And again, you can mix these up, so a result of 12, or a 1 and a 2, gives you hunts down, and then you re-roll for the second one. If you get, for example, a 32, would be Canoptic Spiders, or a 12 again will be the Necron Nobility. So you've got little grudges and little characteristics you can assign to your guys. Obviously, you're not bound in any way to play these. They're just interesting bits to add to it to make the story more narrative rather than just playing coldly and tactically. So that's pretty cool. As I've said previously on multiple occasions, I do love this stuff. Next, we've got hero injuries. Some nice tables here. Again, they're both double tables, and they're both on D33s. The hero injuries might be, if you roll an 11 for the first one, is left leg, and if you roll a 21 for the second one, is perforated by shrapnel, whereas a 32 might be broken by a melee strike. So you can combine either of the two columns. A 21 on the injury location is right eye, and an 11 on the injury cause would be pierced by a war scythe. So you can have a lot of fun rebuilding your models or reassigning models, or just assigning one thing, so that as you go through your campaigns, your guys get a bit more characterful, and then you can forget about it and start again on the next campaign. The next one, we've got injuries and losses, which are for Ultramarine squads. A D30, although to be fair, a lot of these work on anything. If you would roll a 23 on the injury, you might have Vox units destroyed, and then rolling a 12 on the cause by a strafing run. Again, if you'd roll an 11, you'd have bones fractured, and then a 33 by a concussive blast. So you've got some injuries there, which are cool and make sense. Next, we've got a little bit on the Necrons. Outcasts. Many Necrons are afflicted by madness. Yet there are some whose insanity is so fearful and disturbing that they are shunned even by their own kind. And a lot of this seems to be going on about the Necrons called degeneration. And another prime example they're giving here is flayed ones. Flayed ones are twisted in both mind and body. The Flayer curse, or by the Flayer curse. They exist within their own extra-dimensional realm, emerging only to feast on organic flesh. They are able to sense when their Necron kin are at war and appear unbidden to the slaughter. Feast and take gruesome trophies from the fallen. Of course, as machines, they can never hope to satisfy their eternal hunger. So again, that's pretty nifty. Next, it goes on to actually describe other various types of Necron. Scorpate destroyers are members of the destroyer cult with 3 sharply pointed legs and hyperphased blaze fitted to their arms. Though they may look ungainly, they are graceful on the battlefield, and it goes on to describe them. You've got the Locust destroyers, are Necron immortals or lifeguard who have had their bodies modified to help annihilate living beings with even greater efficiency. And there goes other destroyer types. It says there are many forms of Necron destroyer, each of them utterly horrifying. Hexmarks destroyers are former Deathmark snipers who now sport 6 arms, each class being an Amnitic disintegrator pistol. Ophidian destroyers, meanwhile, are the reminiscent of canoptic constructs with snake-like mechanical bodies. So there's a lot of different types of destroyers, and they're all mental, apparently. Next, Worlds of the Imperium, the realm of mankind. Here's got a brief description of how what some of the worlds are. You've got a picture here of hive cities and galactic phenomena. Each and every Imperial system is vastly different. Solar winds ripple around the system, around this system's binary stars. And they've got hive cities. Some of humanity's worlds are home to vast hive cities, each of which has a population of billions. The Imperium's territories encompass countless systems, spanning the length and breadth of the galaxy. Even in the most remote and punishing environments, humanity's colonies cling to survival. And it's got a brief bit describing the Imperium and the worlds of the Imperium. Then we've got a nice bit on the back with the types of worlds. We've got hive worlds, feudal worlds, and feral worlds. It's worth noting these all sound terrible, but they also have agri worlds and entertainment worlds and all kinds of weird stuff. I think my phone's going a little wonky. Okay. Yeah, they have some worlds which are for the most part relatively good, but they have some worlds that are really bad, and a lot of falls in between. For those who don't know, hive worlds are covered in vast hive cities that rise out of the earth to pierce the clouds. Feudal worlds do not possess advanced technology. Citizens of these worlds, whether peasants, farmers, or noble lords, have little understanding of the Imperium. Feral worlds are isolated planets whose inhabitants have descended into savagery and live a primitive, violent existence. So that's all pretty cool. And we've got a few bits and pieces here. Life in the Depths by Rutger Scar, Hive Ganger. And they've got a feudal knight describing a feudal world, and a scout report of feral world Ascaria, which is done by Brother Sergeant Solin Val of the Death Watch. So you've got some nice descriptions of those worlds there. It's worth noting some Imperial worlds are wonderful and high-tech and clean, but most aren't. Most have been the subject of battles. And in all fairness, the better an Imperial world is... Sorry, I'm just going to try and straighten out. I can't straighten up, it's just going slightly wonky each time. The better an Imperial world is, the more it's going to attract violence, the more it's going to attract raiders. The worlds in the Ultimar sector are said to actually to be fairly reasonable, fairly nice. They still had to deal with hive invasions. They've had to deal with Chaos Space Marine betrayals. They've had to deal with wargs and all kinds of things, because when you've got a lot of stuff, people try and take a lot of stuff. Next, we've got the how to build. This is going to be exactly the same as the previous how to build. Again, having all the same instructions in it. How to paint. Again, this is going to be pretty much the same as the previous how to paint. And as I said previously, I found an easy way to paint these guys was actually just to paint them black and dry brush them. Extensively with some light colours, and then do a little highlighting. Gave a very quick and easy way of doing it. Next, we've got secure the drop site, in which you're using 3 of these things, because you have 2 so far. You have a mission briefing. The Necrons have compromised one of the Ultramarines' landing sites and are preparing an ambush. The incoming Space Marine transports. I can't read today. For the incoming Space Marine transports. The Primaris Librarian must drive the Necrons back and deactivate the landing beacon before his allies descend into the jaws of the Xenos Trap. And that's got quite a nice little setup. It's one Necron librarians. Set up against a bunch of other guys. setups using the large battle mat, gather your dice on range or on wound markers, set up the terrain as shown. Set up the models and objectives as shown. Models must be in unit coherency. Choose or command each force. Placement 8 Necron warriors with Gauss flayers. B, Flaybons in reserve, see below. Objectives 8 Necron warriors with Gauss flayers B. Gauss flayers B. Yeah. Flaybon reserves, see below. Flaybon's not set up on the map. And Librarian in Phobos armor E. Why have you labelled them if you're not going to label them on the map? That is a strange thing to do. As you can see, they've given a little list with A, B, and C, but there's no key or anything on the map for A, B, and C to correspond to, A, B, and E to correspond to. There's just C and D. It's like, why? Why would you label them on one bit and then forget to label them on others? You've got the rules and data sheets. We've got some rules here for the psychic phase, which are nice. I'll just quickly go over that. You select one psychic from your army. Psychic units that fell back on this turn are not eligible. When you've selected an eligible psychic from your army, you can attempt to manifest a psychic power. To cast a power, you must pass the psychic test. Make a psychic test by rolling 2d6 and compare the results to the warp charge value of the psychic power. If the result is equal or greater, the psychic power manifests successfully. If the result is lower, the psychic power does not manifest. And if you roll a double 1 or double 6 when taking the psychic test, that unit immediately suffers perils of the warp, which is described just across from it. When a psychic unit suffers perils of the warp, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. A psychic unit destroyed by perils of the warp while attempting to manifest a psychic power. If a psychic is destroyed by perils of the warp while attempting to manifest a psychic power, the power automatically fails. So if you roll 12 on 2d6, it's still a loss. So it is worth noting that that actually changes the amount of results you can get slightly against your favour, which is pretty nifty. Where are we? Librarian number 1, wounds 5. So even if you roll the maximum, the librarian cannot be killed outright by perils of the warp. It also states if a psychic is destroyed by perils of the warp, then just before removing it from the battlefield, every unit within 6 inches immediately suffers D3 mortal wounds. So that's likely to be your own units, but it could also be the enemy's units. You've got it explains mortal wounds here, which I think we all know, but in case you don't, a mortal wound is just a wound that you cannot save under any circumstances. It also has the smite psychic power. A psychic test of 5+ is required to manifest this power. Which is pretty cool. It's worth knowing that isn't, well, as I just said, that isn't as good as it sounds, because it isn't quite as good as it sounds. It doesn't really affect the statistics that much, but it is worth noting again. You've got 36 potential results, and you need to get a 5+, which means which means most of the results you're going to get are positive, but there is one extra result, which is 2 6s, which is negative, which is worth remembering just as a bit. If you're rolling badly, it might just be the one that bites you in the bum. So I'm just trying to work out the odds in my head, and I shouldn't stop to do that. Next, it walks you through the battle thing with moving, psychic, shoot and charge and fight. It's assuming you're going to make some of the psychic. So it's assuming you're going to make some of the psychic tests and shoot lightning, and then you're going to get shot to crud. When you counter attack. This is one of the. I do like these slightly different ones because this is in no way a matched battle, but the result of what you're trying to do isn't to destroy the enemy. If you manage to destroy the enemy, obviously you win, but the purpose is to achieve a goal. Keep playing, going back to Necron turn 1. The Space Marine wins if the Librarian is touching the objective marker at the end of Necron turn 4. So he's got to survive 4 turns. But he is fairly powerful, so he might. And they've got to kill him. So there is space for a lot of fun there. The rematch for this is swap size rather than actually doing anything else. So not the most interesting rematch, but there you go. Right. Through the magic of looking at the back, we'll see what we've got next week. Even though I actually haven't had next week's right there. Next week's comes with a Necron Technomancer, which I assume is some kind of wizard. Discover the Drukhari, who are the Dark Elder as were. A playthrough featuring your Technomancer and includes a new double-sided mat. So that's something new to play on. This one actually looks very pretty. So that's there. And then on the 19th, for issue 19, Munitorum Armoured Container. I wonder what that will be like. Then build and paint your terrain. Use grenades in a new playthrough. So again, we've got some more of this stuff to expect next week. And through the magic of the interwebs, I will immediately pause and we will see you next week.